Hi guys, this is GrayX, and I'm going to show you a guide on the Firebird Set Dungeon. First thing you're going to want to do is you want to go to Act 2, Archives of Zoltun Kulle. And basically you're just going to want to run back. This is just to show you where the dungeon is. Now the first time you ever go to the dungeon, it will not be on your map, it's on the map in the video, because I've already been there. But you have to be right up next to it in order to find it, so that kind of threw me for a loop the first time I did this. So let's go ahead and go into the specific objectives for this dungeon. First and foremost, the hardest objective that you're really going to want to be focusing on is that damn burn objective, where you have to burn, I believe, 20 enemies in 3 seconds, 6 times. So this one seems really difficult, but with the right equipment, it really isn't. It's really, really simple. At the end of the video, I'll go into sort of a breakdown of the equipment, some of the things that you might want to take along to make this dungeon a lot easier, and stick around if you want to see that at the end, or if you just want to see how it's done, you know, keep watching this. So first, right off the bat, notice that when I'm running throughout the dungeon, I make sure that while I'm doing these objectives, I'm killing everything along the way. The big thing is if you do all the objectives, you still have to kill all the enemies within the time limit. So I try to make sure that while I'm doing all this kiting, while I'm trying to, throw out my tornadoes to get them all bunched up, to kill them as I go. Now don't make the mistake here what I did was I burned that guy and I'm like, oh, he's burned, he's gonna die. Because if an enemy leaves more than 2 game screens of you, the burn drops off, and you'll actually see that he's alive later, so I have to run back and go kill him. And I complete all the objectives with like 1 minute and 30 seconds to spare. Unfortunately, you still have to hunt down all the guys, and I only have 15 seconds to spare at the end. So, a couple things to note here is that it's pretty basic. You kite, throw a tornado, or bunch up the enemies, and I'm using an item called Ransler's Folly that's really helping me do that, and then you burn them down. I'll go ahead and talk at the end about how I downgraded my damage and how I worked that out. The other objectives, I believe everyone's not going to have a problem with. I already did the, suicide into enemies. That's pretty simple. Just gather up a huge group, die, you're done. Kill the enemies without taking fatal damage. I don't think anybody's going to have a problem with that. But just to illustrate how easy that burn objective really is, I did it in the second room. I've already done it in the second kind of cavern area. And it really is simple. Like right here, I actually could have done it again. Because of the Ransler's Folly. It really, really helps out with this run. It really, really does make it easy. From this point, it's just about killing the monsters, making sure I don't miss anybody, because the more people I miss, the more people I'm going to have to run back into, and boom, we get into all objectives completed. We just need to hunt down every single monster. I'm at 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining. And, like I said, I believe I complete the objective at 15 seconds to spare. So that really does stress how important it is to just kill as you go, to kill as many monsters as you go, so that once you beat all the objectives, you don't have to hunt them down as much. So right here, what I have, 2, 3 monsters left, and when you're through this huge dungeon, like that's kind of a big deal. So yeah, for the most part, the first objective you should obviously be worrying about is the burn objective. Worry about that first. Kill monsters as you go, so that's, the more monsters you kill as you go through the dungeon, that's the less monsters that you're going to have to sweep up in the very end and hunt down. The suicide objective, where you have to suicide meteor 50 enemies, not very difficult. I believe I did it over 2 times, you saw. Even if you mess up the first time, you still have plenty of time for the cooldown to drop off. So don't worry about getting 50 enemies kited together. Boom. Mastery right there. Excellent. So stick around if you want to see kind of an inventory breakdown of the kind of things that I use to prepare for this dungeon. Excellent. So let's go over some of the pieces that we used for the Firebird set dungeon. First and foremost, yes, I'm using the Firebird set. Shocker. So it is worth noting that you only need to get the 6-set piece bonus. You don't actually need to be wearing the entire set. I'm not using the shoulders. If you're using a Royal Ring of Grandeur, I believe that works too. Yeah, so just make sure you have the 6-set bonus in your set. No pun intended. Um, One of the things I had to work on for the set dungeon was I had to lower my damage. I'm not even a very high level character, not even that great gear. I'm using a Death Wish, non-ancient, not even the highest tier emerald. I still had to downgrade my damage. So I feel like a lot of people are going to have to do that. The only preparation I did for that was, first thing I did was take any weapon and done. That's it. That's all I did. I switched my weapon to anything else. Anything that was less powerful, anything that didn't have that awesome disintegrate does more damage, uh, uh, legendary ability. It doesn't have an emerald. It's still usable. Legendary, has intelligence, but I just went into my stash and picked out a random weapon. I think that really did it for me. Also, I took off magic weapon. I have it on the bar, but I never used it throughout the dungeon, if you might have noticed. Uh, and I think that I might have still been okay, even if I used magic weapon. However, I feel like that really cemented it for me. So granted that I'm not a very high level character, I feel like a lot of people are going to have to do these two things. I didn't have to do anything crazy. I didn't have to reroll gear. I didn't have to reset Paragon points or anything like that. For the most part, you're just going to probably only need to switch out your weapon and not use, rather, magic weapon. I think that's going to be able to do it for everyone. I don't think you need to go crazy with it. The way set dungeons work is that it doesn't actually matter what difficulty the game is set at. It's always a set difficulty. I'd say it's around T6, T7-ish difficulty. So one of the reasons I recommend that you wait is that there are a lot of really cool items that you can get before you do the set dungeon, namely Ransler's Folly. Now, Ransler's Folly, I'm just going to read it. Energy Twister periodically pulls in lesser enemies within blah 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 yards. So essentially what this means is that it gives me a really nice tool to be able to gather up a lot of monsters and be able to blast them down quickly. So I can throw out a twister and shoot. And you saw me do that several times throughout the dungeon, and it really made the burning objective, which I believe is why you're here, it really made it easy. It really made it simple, and it really simplified the run. The other objectives really aren't that difficult. It's really just that burn objective. Ransler's Folly really simplifies it. If there's one item that I had to say is a must-have for the run, it's Ransler's Folly. The Twister Pool is going to be your best option, better than Black Hole, better than anything else you're probably going to use. Disintegrate is also something that is going to be that you're going to want to put on your bar. Even if you're not using Disintegrate, it's the quickest way to put the debuff on your enemies. So essentially, when I first ran through it, I did the stereotypical last season Firebird build of Blizzard, and that was just a complete headache and was completely the wrong way to do it. You might have to respec a little bit depending on whether you're using Disintegrate. Luckily I was using Disintegrate regardless by the time I hit this upper level, so I didn't really have to switch around my uh, build around very much. One thing I did have to change, however, was I was using Unstable Anomaly. Now, Unstable Anomaly is a fantastic ability. I really like it as a passive to be able to have that second life, but unfortunately for this dungeon, it just makes it a lot harder. Essentially, every time you die, you do a shockwave and it stuns them and all that good stuff. But how it works is Unstable Anomaly always procs before the Firebird life save procs. So essentially, what it boils down to is you're going to burst Unstable Anomaly first, then you're going to do the Firebird. And you really don't want to have that hurdle in your way, especially since it CCs and really spreads out the monsters, and you really want to try to gather up as many as you can. One passive I really recommend switching to is Dominance. Now, Dominance isn't something I normally use, but it's very specialized and it's very good for this particular dungeon. Essentially, what Dominance says is that every time you kill an enemy, you get a small shield, and it stacks up to 10 times. So this could be a really big help for a lot of other people, a lot of wizards out there who are like, oh, I have to sit here and channel Disintegrate where everyone's smacking my junk off. Well, Dominance, you're going to be killing enemies very quickly. I even had to downgrade my damage, so you're going to be killing enemies a decent amount. So having that extra shield essentially at all times really helps out, helps you choose when to die, and that's very important for this run is choosing when to die and choosing when you don't want to die, as ridiculous as that sounds. Now, a quick note, you might want to take off your follower for this build. I dismissed my follower for it. The first time I ran through it, the Enchantress, actually, I would do a Twister, suck in all the enemies, and the Enchantress would immediately push everyone out and stun everyone. It's like, what are you doing? You're making this really hard for me. And they have the resistance, so I can't do it again. So the best way is just dismiss your follower. Don't even take them. If you really have to take a follower, try to get the Templar or the Scoundrel with you because you can spec them in a way that doesn't CC crowd control. So you're really going to want to focus on that. And yeah, I believe that's everything you need to the dungeon. Like I said, I didn't have to reroll any of my stats. In the PTR, it was a lot harder. You really had to stack resistances, maybe get the amulet where you had the immune to cold. For this, I really don't feel that's necessary. It has been nerfed. You don't have to go to crazy lengths. Really, I would say switch your weapon. Don't use magic weapon to downgrade damage. That's still a serious concern. I believe defense is not something you're really going to have to worry about, and dominance is going to provide you a little bit of a boost if it is something that's a serious concern. All right, well, good luck with the dungeon. Go get them.